My name is Xandr, and today I want to talk about exploration. I started thinking about this after I heard a podcast on the radio. The podcast was about quicksand and why people are not afraid of it anymore. So looking through history, they found that quicksand was considered something incredibly scary in the age of exploration and up to the 1960s, which, in case you didn't know, was when the space race was. For example, when Apollo 11 was landing on the moon, they were afraid of quicksand on the moon. But now most people and younger people don't even understand quicksand, don't even consider quicksand the least bit scary. The podcast said that it was because quicksand is associated with the mysteriousness that is found while exploring and adventuring. So people would consider the feeling of anxiety that comes from adventure and nervousness that we experience while exploring to quicksand. And we as a society seem to have lost this because we think that by watching a video or reading a book about an adventure, we can experience the feelings that come from exploring. That's just not the case because you don't know what's going to happen and you know there's nothing to be afraid of. Like how both SpaceX and NASA are building rockets to fly to Mars, but most people in the government are perfectly content to stay on Earth and just look at Mars from afar. Just look at the percent of money that goes to NASA out of the federal budget. It's at an all-time low of 0.5%. If NASA had the budget the US military has, we would probably already be on Mars. But the government and people would rather build up high-tech defenses and stay on Earth and protect ourselves instead of trying to go somewhere new. Well, in the 1960s, space travel was a thing on everyone's mind. And the budget was $43 million instead of the $19 million that it's at today. Another thing I found was a study in the UK showed half of the teenagers surveyed said they were afraid of trying new experiences. Then 4 in 10 said they prefer spending time indoors. And then to top it off, a quarter said online ventures were as satisfying as real life. So that suggests that computers and all sorts of other technology are taking away our sense of adventure because we think that's how it's really like. But going somewhere new in person is way more fun and exciting. Throughout my middle school years, I have learned that there are still ways to find adventure on our planet. Like one cool thing our family does are home exchanges. Some family from another part of the world swaps houses with my family. We get to visit a new place and not stay in some hotel that is in a touristy area where you don't see anything new. That was one of the great things about the Costa Rica trip that I went on last year. While staying with the homestay families and working at the school, we could see what Costa Rica culture and food was really like, and not the tourist environments that are set up around the hotels with fancy buildings, lots of cars, huge meals of fancy and expensive foods, unlike the simple food that was grown in the area, and small open houses that are made up from metal and wood that really make up Costa Rica. And another time this happened was in Marea, which is a tropical island in the French Polynesias. If you look online, you see hotels with straw houses and on the water, but the second you get out of the hotel areas, you see houses made out of the type of metal they make shipping containers out of, which gives you a greater understanding of the poverty in the area. But even with this poverty, the people have a wonderful spirit. It was right in the middle of the jungle and a 5-minute walk away from the beaches. The coral and sea life underwater at these beaches wasn't dead unlike the beaches that surrounded the hotels. The scenery and animal life was much better. And I got to go to restaurants run by local people with real native food. It was much better than the stuff at the hotels. Every time I've gone to a place, it's so much cooler to just walk around and explore, unlike going to all the places that are suggested on the internet. And sometimes you just need to go off the trail for a bit. Once I went hiking in Maui with my dad, and we got lost, but we ended up in a place with the coolest view I've ever seen. I hope to have many more experiences like this in my lifetime. I've learned that sometimes you need to be afraid of a little quicksand, but try to walk through it anyways. It's the best way to break out of your comfort zone and to understand new cultures. So next time you go somewhere new, do something that you didn't find on the internet, and don't be afraid to try something new and real. Thank you for listening.